Oh, we're really starting.
You're wearing an Ignite shirt. I smell like smoke. Is it hot in here, or is that just us?
It is, yes.
Welcome to Point of
It's
View,
hot. I
everyone.
also
It's
smell
hot
like
in here.
smoke. I feel like we have to tell people what we did tonight now.
Nope. Just leave it at that.
Okay.
And
I'm telling people because it sounds like we're promoting smoking.
oh,
We
true.
were
Oops, I
at a
didn't even think
fire.
about that. I don't smoke.
I don't either. We were at a fire. I saw Justin.
A
about an hour
bonfire. We
ago.
didn't gather at a house fire or something.
No, we did not commit arson. But we did. I did go to Justin's house for a fire with a few friends, and I just got home, and we are recording this at, get ready for it, 12:17 a.m. Do I have to be at work tomorrow? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day.
It's Labor Day today when we're
Oh, I was
recording
about
this.
to just say this is going to be published on Labor Day, but no, today is Labor Day. Well, yeah, no, officially Labor Day.
Today is Labor Day.
Yes, and I'm laboring.
Look at our laborious selves.
Is that a word?
Laborious? Yes. Did I use it correctly there? Probably not.
All right.
Again, no recreational math, no recreational grammar. We'll just keep adding to the list.
That's all right. You look cute in your glasses, King.
Oh, thank you. Wearing my blue light glasses because I found them and I feel like I look smarter with them.
I have a really funny story, but it has to be told off air. I can't tell you on air, but it's funny.
Tea.
It involves you. That's what makes it funnier.
Oh, what? Oh,
yeah, I know. I know. How are you? Let's do this. Let's do this.
Let's do this.
I was going to say let's point of do this, but I think that's probably
how
not.
many puns can we fit into an episode? How many puns? Okay, well, I'm doing well. Thank you. I'm gonna ask a question. I'm gonna answer the question. Doing well. It's been a while since we've recorded. You've said it. You took the words out of my mouth. Been having withdrawals, but it's been nice.
Yes. But they don't even know. Do the listeners know that we took a break? Because we recorded 2 episodes in 1 week. So to them, we haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. We're still chirping away in their ears, annoying the crap out of our listeners. Exactly.
All right.
You said it. It's funny because we've talked a little bit in person, and I think I actually said this. I'm gonna take credit for this one. I feel like having a podcast, or at least for me having a podcast, is like, you know how everyone always says, oh, if you're a vegan, everybody knows you're vegan because the vegans don't stop talking about being a vegan. I feel like that's me with having a podcast. It's like anytime I can like loop in, oh, I have a podcast. Have you listened to the podcast? Can we turn the conversation to a podcast? Oh, we're talking about, I don't know, turkey dinner. Oh, they're like, we're gonna have a Thanksgiving episode of the podcast. Like, I am so admittedly so annoying that I feel like I turn everything into the podcast.
It's like the men's retreat at Loyola.
Yes.
I'm seeing that in the comments.
When Father Jack recruited everybody for men's retreat. Yes, I'm recruiting everybody.
I think he'd allow us to keep that in there. I think we should keep it in there.
Oh, absolutely.
I literally he let me be him to our friends, and I was like, if you're done hearing about this, just tell us to shut up.
Yes.
You've heard me say it on the podcast. I was like, you can tell him to shut up too. I'll say it for both of us.
Yes, we can both shut our mouths because we talk.
And they were like, no, it's fine. I was like, good.
We spew enough bullshit on this podcast that we don't need to.
Yeah. They got the live look. I think they got, did we give them any spoilers?
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Justin, real quick.
Is this Point of View?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Oh, what are we talking
about? Today, we're talking about our Be Kind 21 progress. We are discussing the importance of being kind to others as well as ourselves, and talking about how human connection should be at the center of everything that we do.
That sounds about right to me. You're so welcome.
Should we talk about things from our point of view?
No, just kidding. Yeah, of course. We told them what we were talking about. Yeah,
Yes.
They know what we're talking about tonight.
Because we're planning ahead.
Yes, we
Look
are
at us. Wow. We're finally, I mean, let me talk for myself though. Planning ahead, but literally I called you today, like, Nick, what should we talk about on today's episode?
Yes, this
But
is true. We worked
kind of
through it.
last
We got
minute.
there together.
Yes, we did. This was a teamwork one. So
For sure.
I'm
But it was a
happy
good
about
one.
this. So
Okay.
I'm good. So I'm good. Yeah. But I feel like I talk about the podcast way too much. And for those listeners who off air or not when you're not listening to the podcast and you have access to my voice, I apologize. And I probably just don't stop talking about the podcast. So I'm sorry, but also not sorry. You know,
Well, if you're listening right now, we just wanted to share that we do have a podcast.
We have a Facebook
Yeah.
page now. We have an Instagram.
We
We're
do.
really promoting this, Bish.
We
I
have a
don't know why I said that.
podcast. If
We
you
have a
didn't know.
podcast. I have a podcast. That's
Guys,
not going to
it's
be our.
12:22. That was when I was born.
Oh, welcome to life.
12:22 a.m. It's not my
Welcome.
birthday, but
It's not your birthday, but
my birth
anyway,
time.
it's your birth time. Do we celebrate that?
It's Labor Day, but my mom wasn't in labor 23 years ago.
Oh, I feel like recording late, I have a whole new energy, like a different kind of energy. Like I got a second wind as soon as we started recording.
That's good. I honestly, I wasn't that tired when I left. I was like, I thought I was, but
wasn't
then I got in
either.
the car and I was like, Siri, play my This Song Slaps playlist. And then I was singing Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo. I'm
There you
kidding. I
go.
wasn't. It was just the first song that came to mind. What song was actually playing? I don't
Anything from last
remember.
episode?
What?
Anything from last episode?
I'm sure there was, because like I listened to a lot of Sometimes by Britney Spears. What a throwback pop
Mm,
from her 1998 album, Baby One More Time.
there you go.
Yeah.
I got a little bit tired when I was waiting for midnight to roll around because you left around 11.
I left at 11.
Yeah.
And I got home at 11:55.
There I am,
Like,
second wind. No caffeine. Just
told my parents I was alive.
that's important.
I sent my ETA to them while I was driving home. I don't think they looked at it.
Does Apple Maps have the function? Because I use Waze, and so Waze you can like share your route with your friends.
Yeah, that's what I meant. You can share
Okay.
your ETA and it shows you. It also has the function where it gives you wrong directions, which is really fun and fresh.
Ah, is that an exclusive? Apple
Yeah,
exclusive?
for sure. It it tells you that you're taking an exit 2 exits before, which seems really helpful
Oh, good.
until it's telling you that you're taking the next exit as you see an exit. Like it
Yeah.
makes it look like you're taking that exit and you're not.
Well, you had said before that an issue you have with Apple Maps is that it tells you either too late or too early.
Yeah, so that is a really, really cool and innovative function that they have going on.
It really sounds fun and funky and fresh.
Yeah, it does.
How are you
yeah.
doing?
Oh, do I have a story? I feel like I
Oh,
think I honestly, my
drum roll,
intros are
please.
what I like save, and then I have nothing else that I want to talk about for the whole thing. So I'm like, all right, so that's all I had to say. Like I
Right.
do it all in the intro.
Now,
but
Justin, you be the main host.
literally, I'm like now I'm your fun sidekick.
You're my Andy
Robin.
Richter to
I'm
my.
Robin.
You're Andy Richter to my Conan O'Brien.
Okay, I'll take it.
No,
I was
no.
gonna say I'm your
no.
barnacle boy. I'm your boy of the barnacle variety. No, so I was at
there's the
work
title.
last night. I was at work last night, and I think you might have asked me on the first episode. I'm not sure. Maybe someone asked me off air. Have you had like I'm sure like working in a restaurant, you've had like interesting tables. Like, have you ever had an interesting table? I don't know if this was on air or off air, but anyways, I'm like, yeah, and like I know I have, but like I can't really pick one. Last night, I for sure had the weirdest experience at a table that I have ever had in the 6 years that I have worked there.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Do
No, it was,
share.
yeah, and so okay, so anyways, it was at the very beginning of my shift, so it was pretty dead. It was 5 o'clock, and we usually don't get busy till like 6:37. So I had the only table inside. All the other tables that were there were outside. So my table came in and they seemed really nice. Like they were very bubbly and they were playfully arguing with each other. And then they asked my opinion and I gave it. And they're like, and the woman was like, oh, see, he's a man, so he agrees with you, meaning her boyfriend, which like, whatever. That means nothing to me. But, and then they were like, oh, your name's Nick, his name's Nick too. That's so funny. That's like magic. And I was like, oh, haha. And like, I go along with it. I like bubbly, friendly tables. They were like, she was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm embarrassed. Like, I never know what I'm going to get. And I was like, no worries. Like, whatever. For her drink, they ended up getting Bud Lights after like taking a really long time to look at the menu, which again, okay, I don't care. And so I go to bring them the Bud Lights, and this is completely irrelevant to the story, but it needs to be said just to set the scene. She had moved over to his side of the table, and they were making out.
Oh.
And I was like,
so this
yeah,
is
I
two
know there
people.
no
This
one,
is two people, right?
two
So
people,
initially
yeah.
it was one person across
Yes.
from the other.
Oh,
and now, wait, and now they're next to each other.
They are,
right there,
yes,
it's
they are
awkward.
officially
Because
same-siders.
I swear, Nick, if I'm ever dating someone and I go on a date and you find out that I sat in the same booth as my date, I don't know, punch
Take
me
you
in the
out back.
face,
Yeah.
take me out back, literally.
Justin, I wish that was the least normal thing that happened
Oh God.
at
Okay,
this
keep
table.
going.
So I forgot to tell you this part, but she handed me her ID, which I didn't ask for. She was not 21 and she wasn't close to 21. I just want to say that. And I thought she was kidding. But I didn't say, I was polite. I won't say, she also had like, I mean, gray hair is fine, for any, I found out the other day that I have 2 grays in my eyebrows, but she did not look 21. And when she showed me her ID, she wasn't in fact 21. So that confirmed it. He looked much, much older than her, but apparently he wasn't because they made it a point to tell me.
Wait,
Anyways,
so can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
You said she didn't look 21. Did she look older or
Much
younger?
Older.
Much older. Okay. I assume that with the
Much
grays,
older.
but I just wanted to clarify. Okay.
Yes. But again, like I said, like I'm not judging the way people present themselves. She was very nice, whatever. So I get them their food. It's going well. I go over once. How is everything? They say it's good. I walk away. I go work on the chalkboard that I'm doing because I literally at this point only have 1 table. I then get a second table. And again, it's literally, I have the only 2 tables in the dining room because everybody else wanted to sit outside. And it just happened to be that the 2 tables that were, when it was my turn, wanted to sit inside. So fine. I go back to that table and I say, and it looks like they're almost done. So like I was going to grab their plates, but I can tell they're both raising their forks to their mouths. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to take their plates. That's rude. So I was like, how are you guys? How are you guys doing? And they're like, look at me and they're like, we're good. How are you? And like, again, they're being bubbly. So I'm like, I'm so good, like, and just whatever. I walk away. I go to my other table, which they can see. I'm taking that table's order and the host comes up to me and taps me and says, your other table's looking for you. And I said, okay. I just have to finish like with this table. So I grabbed that table their drinks, gave it to them, went over to the first table. And I'm like, how are you guys doing? Can I get you anything else? She goes, where have you been? And I was like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean, where have I been? Meanwhile, this has been like 5 minutes at most since I was there the last time. And they were lifting their forks. And she was like, yeah, I was like, I'm with other tables. And at that point I was kind of like taken aback. So I grabbed their plates, I take them to the back. I go back, can I get you guys anything else? And she looks at me, she goes, could I speak to your manager, please? Like,
what happened? What?
360. Okay. Complete 360. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'll go grab her, whatever. And at this point I'm like, is she for real right now? Like what's happening? So my manager goes over and this is when it gets even weirder. She asks the manager to sit down with her in the booth. So my manager did that, like your reaction. And she was like, I can't sit down with you. And she was like, no, please do. So my manager sits down. My manager's like young too. She's like in her late 20s. And the woman saying like, is he new? Like, I know everyone has an off night, but we were sitting, blah, blah, blah. And
are you hearing this conversation yourself?
I could hear it and I'm like, what is her deal? Like we were having a perfect whatever. Everything was going really well. They were definitely awkward, but who isn't? Like I was being friendly with them. They told me at the beginning of the night how easy they are. and how fun they are. And I was like, okay, great. So I go back over, and at this point I'm not happy because of they just called my manager over, and like I said, my manager like could tell when they asked her to sit down, that's when they stopped getting taken seriously. But so I go over and I'm like, I was gonna say something because at this point all the other servers know, and I wanted to say something
You
like,
were the gossip of the night.
well, I wanted to say like, I just wanted to let you know there are like 3 servers laughing at you right now because what you did was not in any way kind or acceptable, because I hadn't done literally anything. But instead I was like, nope, it is Be Kind 21. I put on my happy face and I went over, and it was a little bit sarcastic, but I was like, thank you guys so much. Have a great night. And she goes, can I talk to you for a second? And I was like, sure. She was like, can you sit down? I was like, no, I have other tables. I'm sorry. But I said, but I would like to know what happened tonight, because I I'm a little bit confused. Like, I have been here for 6 years and I would like to know so I can do better in the future. And she goes, well, you weren't, we sat here for a half hour. And I was like, no, I was like, what? You didn't sit here for a half hour. And she was like, I was like, I came over 10 minutes before you, or 5 minutes at the time beforehand, right? I just want to make sure we have the same story. Like, I came over and I asked you guys how you were doing, and you were still picking, and it's considered rude to take people's plates if they're still eating. And I was like, did that not happen? And her husband or boyfriend, I'm not sure, was like, yeah, that did happen. And I was like, okay. And she was like, I was like, well, okay, well, then is there anything else? Because I just like to, just get like, I would like to do better in the future. And she was like, well, after that, like, we didn't see anyone in the dining room for a long time. And I was like, well, that's not really, like, with all due respect, and I was being nice to them, and I was like, I have a table behind me and you saw me at their table, and your husband or boyfriend walked behind me to go to the bathroom while I was taking their table. Like, did that not happen? And he was like, well, yeah, that you were there when I was going to the bathroom. I was like, and this all happened in a span of 10 minutes. And she was like, you know what? I'm really sorry. Like, this is probably our fault. Like, and it wasn't even like a whatever, it was us. Like, I was genuinely very confused. And the host, who is extremely kind, was fuming because she watched the whole thing. They were sitting close to the hostess, and she was like, she backed me up and she was like, they were not sitting there. Like, he literally was just there, went to another table, and they were just being really bizarre. She was like, I'm sorry. Like, it probably was us. Like, I don't want to get anyone in trouble. And I was like, okay, well, like, genuinely have a good night. Like, I thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it. Have a good night. They leave. Their bill was $119. They left $0.00 and wrote it in as the tip. Yeah. It does have a happy ending, though, because the table that I was tending to must have heard them, because they were supposed to leave 16 for a tip, and they left 35. Which, wow. If the recreational math, they left to the tip the people skipped out on.
Wow.
It was the weirdest experience, because, like, I can say from, I've been there 6 years, like, there have been tables I can be like, oh yeah, I should have been way more attentive with them, or I messed up there. I genuinely, it had been 5 minutes. Like, it was the weirdest thing. We couldn't tell if they were trying to, like, skip out on the bill, or if they realized, like, because my manager didn't pull anything off.
Right.
When they complained. But just, like, I don't know, the making out at the table was a little much.
Good for you for not challenging, but, like, you handled that in a very mature way that, like, held your ground while also still being very, like, hospitable and, like, genuine. And
thank you. I mean, like I said, there could have been tables that could have called me out for something like that, and I would be like, yeah, I could have been more attentive to them. Like, everybody has seriously, everybody has bad days, but it was the weirdest experience I've ever had with the table, because the immediate shift. Also, if you ask for the manager, unless they're being, like, mean and derogatory to you, you cannot ask for the manager and also call yourself an easy customer.
Right.
Those
are just opposite. Yeah.
Those are opposites.
It's but so funny because you do this for, like, you work at the restaurant for just, like, out of the goodness of your heart at this point, because you have a full-time job, maybe make a little bit extra money.
I don't even think it's you give me a lot of credit. It's just to make extra money, because I love work. I love waiting tables.
Well, I think also the goodness of your heart, because I don't know. Well, as you've proven, it's sometimes not the easiest, but I
Yeah,
don't know. The stories you come with, you
and
come away with.
I've had people ask for the manager about like, oh, the food um wasn't cooked the right way, or like I waited too long for this. But I've never had someone ask them to talk to the manager about me. No, nonetheless had that happen in a situation that weird.
Yeah.
Also, when she left, the host was like, "Have a good night," and she just like beelined out the door. She didn't say bye. So I'm now the question is, when they come back, because they've come back before, like they've been there multiple times, do I refuse service or do I make sure I have them? That is the question.
Interesting.
Because they clearly aren't going to want me again, but we do have the right to refuse service. And
Right.
I can very much say to the people that they get, oh, they left a $0 tip the other night. So that is just, I just want to let you know that before you take them.
Right.
So
the power you have. Wow.
no, I mean, it's not even that. It's just
the
like,
ball's in your court, kind of, and I hope it doesn't turn into a thing, but that was kind of rude that they just.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't,
because we live in a society that tips.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I don't know. That was wild. And I missed out on $20. That's, if you think about it, like a lot of people don't even, like that's a typical wage for like an hour, you know, or like less, like minimum wage is less than that. So I missed out on, I mean, I guess I didn't miss out because the table was kind enough to, and they didn't tell me they did it. They just paid in cash and left. So I didn't even get to thank them.
Wow.
But I know, because I noticed when they left, but that was very kind of them.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. I wonder if they're signed up for Be Kind 21. Yeah. So
last night.
What? You almost blew it?
I almost blew it last night.
I'm glad that you mentioned it because I kind of wanted to reflect on our Be Kind 21 experience. I know when this episode comes out, it's going to be the beginning of week 3. And we have been posting our lists 7 days at a time onto our social media platforms on Instagram and on Facebook. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit, and also in a broader sense, talk about kindness and compassion and just service of others, and also just human connection in general. And I feel like your little anecdote to this episode really touched on human connection.
And my day 4 was absolutely not snapping at that woman. And I won't say it's just her, that couple, because same. Let's just quickly. They were on the same side. They were making out. They asked me to sit down. They asked the waitress to sit down. They flipped and gave not the waitress, the manager. They flipped completely their story. Like their story that they were telling just was not true. They were there for like 40 minutes total.
Right.
Like just the whole thing was so bizarre.
Right. Well, I want to give both of us kind of an opportunity to reflect on how the last 2 weeks have gone. I think we should start off by reading what our last 2 weeks were. I can start reading with mine, and then you can read yours if you have it. And then we can just kind of reflect on what it's been like. And I have a couple of like questions that I can ask you and can both answer. But
I feel like we should only talk as like, I think we should be authentic to like, these are the ones we've done so far. These are the ones we're looking forward to.
Right.
And I think you should go first because I just spoke for a while.
Yes. So the way that I set mine up is it's I think it's supposed to be a calendar, but I kind of just wrote out different things that I think that I are obtainable, but also things that I could do. And so I may not have done them in order, but I have done, them. And again, this is, by the time this releases, this is the beginning of week 3. So let's see. I did in order from 1 to 14, be open-minded about transitions in my life, give Ryan a call, make the space I occupy a welcoming space for me and others, spend time with my sister, taking time to read one of the books I keep procrastinating, clean and organize my space, exercise, reach out to a friend I've lost to check in, go through clothes and donate items you don't wear, cook for my family, be mindful, present, and kind to yourself, walk Jazzy, which is my dog, pay for someone's meal, and work to understand those who are have a different perspective from me.
Oh, I like that. I especially like your last one because sometimes we've talked about like automatic thoughts. in the past on this episode, but I think it's really cool to like when you don't understand someone's viewpoint, but you want to like I think there's a real kindness in just working to better understand,
Yeah.
to meet people at their viewpoint, and then
Yes.
maybe they'll see yours a little bit or maybe not. But I think it's a very I think it's a very mature thing to do. And when I say mature, like I don't think many adults know how to do that. And I consider us adults at this point, even though I don't feel like one. Like I think
Yes.
it's a very important life skill to be able to really try to learn and understand someone.
Right. I agree. And I think we live in a very polarized world, no matter what you talk about, I feel like. And I feel like
Right.
that is a
Sure.
way to build a bridge
Yeah.
to kind of connect the two opposite sides and just find common ground. And so I haven't done that yet, I will admit,
Well, I
but
mean,
I'm looking to
it's not in your
do it.
first 5 days, so you
Right.
wouldn't have gotten to it yet. Today is
Right.
the 6th, but the wee hours of the 6th.
Absolutely. So I will say the one that I haven't done is taking time to read one of the books I keep procrastinating. And I feel like that's going to be something and you help hold me to that as well, because I will keep procrastinating and blah, blah, blah. And I enjoy reading when I have the time to do it, but I'm the type of person who will always find like a way to not make time for it, and I'll watch TV instead or watch YouTube or get sucked down the social media hole. So
Yeah.
you have to hold me as a future author and as someone who
Mhm.
appreciates reading. You have to hold me to by the end of these 3 weeks reading one of these books, or at least starting.
I share that with you because I am also somebody that says I was going to say that I proclaim to love reading. I
Preach
like
it.
reading a lot, but I will always choose my phone over reading. And it's not even by choice, like it's kind of like I love reading and I want to, but your phone's just there. It's easier. It's more passive. I don't know. And when I say I'd always choose my phone over reading, it's not like I prefer my phone. Like I genuinely really like reading. And there's nothing better than having a good book that you are really into.
Yes.
Um,
What type of books do you read?
I haven't read recently. So when I do, it's still like the young adult books, or
Mm-hmm.
like my dad had been trying to get me to read this book. It's called Vertical Run, that his dad owned. And it's like the most like masculine book ever. So it was kind of funny because like me reading it, but it's called Vertical Run, and it's about this guy. He's like a Chad, if anybody listening knows what that means. He goes into work and everyone is trying to kill him and he doesn't know why. And then he gets home and his wife is trying to kill him. Like it's just this wild story. So I read that recently. But that was really more because my dad wanted it. But I don't know. I loved Harry Potter. This sounds like this is
You
like
sound like
somebody.
you read a lot of fiction. Do you really do you
Yeah,
like that?
no, I do read mostly
Yeah.
fiction. Although, yeah, no, I read mostly fiction. Like
Yeah.
I said, I don't read a lot anymore. I like anything with a good plot twist. And I feel like when I'm like, what's your favorite book? Harry Potter. It's like, oh, so you don't actually read. Like I feel like that's, it's like, do you like cars? Yeah, like I love that, like, what's that one? The like I think it's like a Toyota or something. Like it's just like, like
Yeah.
I sound like I'm like fishing but a book I read recently that I loved was called One of Us is Lying. It's a very easy read. It's about these high school kids. Someone dies in this is not spoiling anything. This happened, like this says this on the back cover. Someone dies in detention and there's 5 people and you have to like figure out who it was that did it. But as you're trying to figure it out, other secrets that they each have start coming out.
Oh, cool.
And it's really, really
It's like
good.
a whodunit.
Yeah, and there's a sequel, and my toxic trait is putting things off that I want to do, so I have not yet read it. I own it.
I really want to get into some fiction. I don't need to find either an author or some good books that I will like enjoy. Because I don't know. I'm a big science fiction person in terms of like TV and movies, but I don't know. maybe books might be too outlandish for me. I don't know, but I the books that I tend to read tend to be like self-help books, like the transition book I mentioned a couple of episodes ago. A lot of How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. That's not necessarily self-help, but like a lot of serious topics.
Yeah.
Building a Bridge by Father Jim Martin, about the LGBTQ community in the Catholic Church and how both sides can kind of build a bridge versus like being antagonistic toward each other. That was a learning experience. Yeah, but I want to get into some fiction because I feel like I would enjoy it once I get into a really good book. I'm just yet to find that. But
I like that you read like self-help books though. That's like something that I would like see on like a Pinterest thing and be like, oh, I wish I could do that. Like it seems so like aesthetic and like you're, you know.
I'm also for, and then we'll get back to our topic because we've really taken a turn off the road. But
No, that's
off the main
okay.
road, but
I like when we have these like one-offs, you know.
I read a book. It's called, where is it in my shelf here? I think it's called The Power of Meaning. And like that was really cool. It's just like the whole thing about it's not necessarily finding happiness in life, but it's finding purpose and meaning. And I thought that was really good. I wish I could pull up the author right now. I'm out of my head, but I can't. But The Power of Meaning is a good one. Yeah.
That's
but
cool.
What's your list? I want to hear.
Well, I was just gonna say too,
Sure.
you reminded me of something. I read 2 books in the past year that were more like self-help. The one that I will share is called The Happiness Trap, and it's really, really good. It's basically about making room for all different emotions and not leading yourself to the very human steps, or not taking the very human steps that we usually do that end up leading us to being unhappy. And it's in the pursuit of happiness almost that you end up being unhappy with these steps. So it teaches you to like live with uncertainty, live and make room for those negative feelings that you might feel that you don't want to, because when you push them away, obviously when you try and suppress something, it usually gets bottled up and then overflows. But it's
sorry, interrupt. I just came up with like a great idea. Should we, I mean, we already have our hands full with one podcast. Should we do a spinoff where we do like book reviews or like movie reviews or something?
I think we should just do episodes on it.
Yes,
I'm down.
This is true. Some bonus episodes.
Yeah.
We both read this book. This is what we thought.
And
30 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, the types of books honestly, both of them, fiction books, but also like the self-help books, like any reading for pleasure or to improve on yourself I think that's a kind act.
Right. Right. Which is why I felt like it was okay to put on the Be Kind 21, because it was more one of those like self-care things. I feel like, and I want to hear your list, but I feel like my list is a good mix of self-care, but also acts of compassion towards others. And I kind of wanted a good mix of those. But I've read your list over, but
the cup, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
Which I think is true. And I think in doing these kind acts, it makes me feel, it lifts me up a little bit, and then it allows me to continue and do kind things for other people.
Right.
Once you get in the stride, it becomes almost second nature, which is great, because that is the whole point of Be Kind 21. It's building the 3 weeks is building a habit of kindness. And I also wanted to say, and then I'll read my list, is that you were mentioning how you thought it was like supposed to be a calendar, and how like you haven't necessarily been following it like day by day, but more like, this is what I did this day, this is what I did this day. You are not alone in that. I was actually reading, I think I saw this when I got home from your house. Maya Smith, who is the director of Born This Way Foundation, tweeted out that she said, I have a secret. She was like, want to know a secret? I didn't make a Be Kind 21 list this year. Instead, because A, I didn't want to feel bad about myself when I don't complete something. And B, I don't want to feel done when I do complete something for the day. Like, I'm not this done. So instead, she's using these 3 weeks to just do kind acts at random almost. And like every day, just really focus on being kind. And she tweeted that just to prove that like there's no one way to be kind. If you're putting a limit on it, like what are you doing? You're really just you're constraining the definition.
And I think you made a good point about that when we first talked about it in the last episode, because you said that we're probably going to do multiple kind things in one day. And I find myself just being attentive to that and recognizing it.
He
And
finds himself just being kind.
yes, exactly.
I do. I think he is very kind. I can attest because I know you in real life.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I find myself like I passed someone I was driving somewhere and there was a person asking for money on the side of the road and it was at a stoplight. And, sometimes I just pass them by. And I think we've all come in the situation of should
Absolutely.
we give money? Should we just keep going about my day? But I actually rolled down my window. He had already passed my car. I said, "Sir," and he came up and I said, "Here, like, God bless you." And he was like, "God
That's
bless
pretty
you."
kind.
And it was really nice. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's in those situations too. It's important to remember that they're people
Yes,
who
of
may not
course.
be in, the best financial situation or people asking for money. And, it's easy to say, oh, well, what are they going to do with the money? Well,
It's like,
ultimately
well, what
that's
are you
on
gonna do
them,
with the
sure.
money?
But yeah, right.
You
It's
know?
on them, but I don't know what it's what are you going to do in this moment? It's up to them about what they do with it. But I
Right.
find that myself, I've been in these last 2 weeks have been, well, no, honestly, the
First,
last 6 days.
week.
But
Yeah.
like I said, the first week, I've already found myself making kindness kind of a habit and just being more aware of it. So I'm appreciative of this campaign and you bring it to our attention. And
I
with
really
that,
love that. I'm so
give me
happy.
your list.
Yeah. I want to add one more thing because it's so relevant to what you're saying right now.
Okay.
The first year that I did it, I was very hard on myself, and
Which was
instead
when?
of it was 2019.
Okay.
So the first year I did it, I was hard on myself, and instead of making a list of things I was going to follow, because I was like, what if I don't do something one day? I was like, no, I'm not going to make a list. I'm just going to do a bunch of different things each day. But so, like I said, it was awesome for my mental health, and I really loved the campaign. But I started to like if I was like, oh, if I only did one thing, for example, if I only smiled at someone, like that's so easy. Or maybe it's not for some people, but that was one thing that was easy for me. I was like, oh, I didn't do enough, and then it started becoming a chore, and it became something that if I didn't do a certain amount a day, I was not doing a good job. And that's not kind to myself. Half of this campaign is about being kind to yourself. So I purposely, for the past 2 years, and even more so this year, made sure it was I write down one thing and that's what I'm going to accomplish. If I don't get to it, fine. But I'm that's like if I don't get to it, I'm not going to beat myself up, and that's going to be my compassionate act towards
Yeah,
myself for the day.
absolutely.
So I'm trying, and like I said, you do way more than one kind thing a day without even realizing it. So yeah, maybe I didn't do what I documented, but I gave myself the grace to realize I'm a
Right.
good person and a kind person without the number on my campaign calendar.
Right.
So for anybody that's doing the campaign, we're all with you, including the director of Born This Way Foundation, who is a queen of kindness.
And
But
if you want to
my
sign up, even though this is the last week,
yeah,
if you want to sign up, you can go to our Facebook page, you can go to our Instagram page, and there is a link in our bio that has the sign up link on the Born This Way Foundation website. So
yes. So my list is the first one that to kick off the campaign was to shout out Justin and Dan in my announcement vid. I wrote vid on my thing in my announcement video. No one actually talks like that. Because I just wanted to really express my appreciation towards them because I really feel right now that this is my little circle. Like I obviously have a lot of friends. No, I'm kidding. That's not how I meant that to sound.
Nick,
Like
you're
we all
so
have
popular. Oh my God.
no. We all have friends in our lives, right? But I feel like this has kind of been like my base for a little bit now doing this podcast. And I just think that Justin does a phenomenal job taking the lead when necessary on the show. And I think Dan does an incredible people don't know this because they don't hear the drafts, but Dan does a really good job. Like there have been episodes that Justin and I come off and we're like, I don't know, like, was that good? Did we, like, I felt like I rambled for a while, but then we'll hear the draft and we'll be like, wow, that wasn't as bad as we thought it was. And partially it's, because we don't give ourselves enough credit. A lot of it's Dan, because Dan is an incredible editor and producer, and we're
He's
very
nothing
grateful.
short of a miracle worker.
He's up at 6 a.m. right now. And then we get feedback from listeners who say, I really resonated with this episode. And that just is a testament to all of us. So I'm very appreciative of you guys. The second thing
if I may piggyback off of that, I just, because we have the opportunity here,
yes.
I think the three of us, like, this podcast wouldn't exist if the three of us didn't bring what we bring. I think the three of us have very different gifts, a lot of similar gifts, but very different gifts. And I think the three of us are the reason why we have any success with this. So I also want to just lift you both up, because I wouldn't want to do a podcast with anybody else. And I love our guests and I love my friends, but this is I really enjoyed doing this podcast. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate both of you. The second thing I did was to think of 3 things that I love about myself when I woke up. And I'm proud of myself for this one, because I had a really hard day on number 2, mental health wise. I had my first lapse in OCD in 6 months. And Justin, I told you about that. You had texted me. I was like, I'm having a really difficult time right now. And then we talked, we planned the podcast, this episode, I think, which really helped, because that's something that lifts me up. I paid for the person behind me at Dunkin' Donuts. It was an older couple. And they don't know it was me, because they were, it was a drive-through. And I actually didn't do that on day 3. I reversed to this. Day 3 was the one that I was also having a hard day, didn't get to do anything. And I was like, you know what, my kind act for the day is giving myself the grace and compassion to just know I tried my best today. Come up with a better recycling system for home. That's another one I have. I switched 4 and 5. So this is something that I really want to do, because I've been thinking about this a lot with all of the global warming, really just travesties happening all over the world right now. It is largely up to large corporations to step up and make changes in their policy. But I don't want to be the person pointing fingers at them and not doing my part to the best of my ability. So I think it includes, having a good recycling system at home, encouraging other people. I ask people if they want straws at the restaurant. And I know paper straw, I know that's become kind of a joke for people. It's like, oh, I used a paper straw. And yeah, you're right. That's not going to change the world. And we do still need single-use plastic straws for people that have disabilities that require them. But just doing those types of things is something that I see kindness towards the planet, because we do only have one.
That's great. I think that's a type of kindness that people forget sometimes, is kindness towards our earth.
I did another one actually that was not on my list, but I was that made me feel really good. It was for somebody else. I'm not going to share that one because I don't like to use these as oh, I did something, I'm a good person. That's not the point of this. It's made to make you feel good, but also to do good and to make the world a kinder place, because when the world's a kinder place, it's a better place for all of us. And then today I'm writing 5 letters to friends.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I'm really excited for number 6. I'm taking a break from social media all day. And if it works well, I'd like to do that for a month. I will still be posting on the Point of View podcast, but
so your personal account?
My personal.
I was going to say, is my job description for the podcast changing?
Yeah, it's changing.
I read all the way to 14 because...
Oh, awkward. Let me do that. All right. So number 7 is do one kind thing out of your comfort zone. I think that one's really fun and also terrifying, because it gets you to, usually if it's out of your comfort zone, at least with me, it's something bigger. So it takes a lot of courage. And I think, sacrificing a little bit of your comfort for somebody else is a really cool thing.
Absolutely.
Do an hour of ERP, which is the gold standard for OCD recovery. I've said this before, you can't fully recover from OCD, but it's called exposure response prevention. And you expose yourself to your fears and then the response prevention is not doing compulsions after. So like I said, we'll talk about OCD a different day, but it's something I often avoid because it's really scary for people with OCD. But yeah, number 8 or number 9, I'm gonna skip that one because I want to have this person on later at a later date to talk about this, because it's a organization they run, and I think they just do an incredible job with it. I'd like to make a small donation to a nonprofit that supports people of color, because I think that's really important. And then number 11, I want to call my sister, which I did today. Actually, today's her birthday, so shout out Jordan. Well, I guess it's not her birthday anymore because today's the 6th, but it was the 5th.
And when this releases, it's not even her birthday.
It's really
so
her birthday, but she does listen to these, and if she doesn't,
happy belated.
happy belated. And if you don't listen to this, well, I'm coming for you. And then I want to write more of my book for at least 1 hour. But yeah, so
awesome.
But I think, like I said, I've talked a lot about how it helps me to do these things and to take part in this campaign. So I won't go on about that a ton, but yeah, just being mindful about it and just adding like one thing a day. And my goal, like I said, and it happened the 2 years before, is to continue this. Right. And you don't necessarily have to write it down. Like, again, it makes you feel good, but it's not supposed to be like a self-righteous thing.
Right.
The writing down is, first of all, to share and to get other people to do it. And that's why we're sharing these. When I first started, I was like, I'm not entirely comfortable sharing this. It sounds like I'm bragging and like trying to make myself sound like a good person. But no, it's really to get other people to do it and just to put that positivity out onto social media, because a lot of it's very negative. And also just the list is to create that pattern, to build that habit, because kindness can literally be anything. And Born This Way Foundation talks about that. It can be social justice. It can be, lifting people up. It can be doing something self-care related for yourself. It can be doing hobbies. Honestly, my biggest toxic trait, as I said earlier, is putting off things I like. Like, I am still on episode 5 of Love Victor, and we talked about that, a month ago?
Yeah. Probably.
And it's because I'm like, well, I don't want it to be over, so I'm going to push it off. So I'm going to make sure to watch an episode.
I agree. And I think another benefit of this is just making kindness and like making acts of kindness kind of just second nature and being mindful of it. And when you do it already, because chances are a lot of you are already really kind people. And so it's just being mindful and bringing that awareness to that. I also want to take a minute to just appreciate, you can't see this, but Nick's list is laminated. And I don't know if you just keep it for year after year and you just write with like an expo marker, or if you complete it and then you laminate it. But I really appreciate that it's laminated.
Thanks. It's a Sharpie. So I laminate it because I'm just a freak about this campaign. I really, really like it a lot. And getting to work on it last year was an absolute dream come true. And still so surreal to me, but I laminate them and then I go over with Sharpie, and I want to keep them each year. I didn't write down my first year because I didn't know that this was going to be something I was going to do each year. But I do have last year's, and this was kind of rude, but my brand new Sharpie that I bought at Staples, you can watch it die as I go down the list. I was like, wow, this is brand new. Wow. But the one last year looks phenomenal.
I want to touch on something that you mentioned. You felt like you were self-righteous or not self-righteous, but you had a concern about posting and just sharing with on the podcast or whatever. But I think that's something that's important, that I think about human connection, just this type of service and just spreading kindness. I wouldn't even call it service, just spreading kindness, is the difference between doing the act and then the intention of doing the act. Because I feel like any act can be kind on the outside, but if someone's doing it for a different, just a malintent, then it takes away what the action really is.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to name that, and I think that's the difference between someone who is sharing it being, look what I did,
right? Because that's not what this is about at all,
right? Versus someone who's genuine,
right? And on the flip side of that, if you're somebody with anxiety or intrusive thoughts and think, oh my gosh, am I just doing this or I'm not actually a good person, I shouldn't be doing it for this reason, just do it anyways. Because even if you personally think that your intent was to make yourself feel better, the person that you're doing the kind act for is still going to feel good. So I say just do it, honestly. because most likely if you're participating in a campaign like this, you're not doing it for the wrong reasons. You genuinely want to be helping people and making people feel good and lifting people up. So, and being kind to yourself. So just honestly, just do the kind act. And once the campaign is over and you're not posting anymore, you're continuing to do it, like you're putting good into the world. So I encourage you to really give it a try.
Right.
Even if you don't participate in this campaign.
Right. I think that's important to name. I wanted to touch on something that you touched on a little bit. And we're just going to be lots of touching, apparently. I'm going to touch on something that you already touched on. Touch.
Record store.
If that's the title of this episode, oh my gosh.
There's going to be a lot of touching.
There's going to be a lot of touching. The thing that you...
Consensual.
Consensual.
It's very important.
The thing that you talked about a little bit, and actually you kind of inspired me when I was making my list, because you gave me kind of examples of King, things that could have. What?
Like, King, I shouldn't have instead of you shouldn't have.
But I appreciated, and I talked a little bit about it as well. I had a good mix of self-care things as well as acts of compassion towards other people. And you brought up the analogy of you can't pour out of an empty cup. And I really like that. And I want to tie that into how I learned, just a little bit of personal experience. I learned that there are different types of kindness, different types of service. I don't just want to use the word service because I feel like what we're doing is definitely more than service, but lack of a better phrase, the service that we're doing for ourselves, service that we're doing for other people. I really appreciate that there's not really like a hard cut or hard border of what qualifies for a act of kindness with this campaign. And I think it's important to recognize too that there are different types of service. An example that I can share is when I was younger and in high school, a lot of the types of community service that I did was at an organization called An Abundant Table. They served hot meals to people in the suburban area who could not afford meals, and they served it on Wednesdays and Fridays, and my family would go in and we'd help out. And my mom, I will give her credit, was kind of the orchestrator for our family, signing us all up because we all went to Catholic. Mrs. Do, shout her out. We went to Catholic schools, my siblings and I, and with that, or CCD, or for confirmation or something like that, you had to get a certain amount of community service hours. And that's how it started off. But it eventually became something more, because this organization, sure, it was a soup kitchen, but we weren't just serving food. We were encouraged to talk, interact with the clients that came in. And it was intimidating at the time, for sure. I mean, I was in high school. My siblings were probably middle school, maybe even younger. But the connections, and this is something I want to talk about I said I want to talk about at the top of the episode, the human connection that was formed. Sure, we came from different places and we were experiencing different things in our lives, but the human connection that I was able to form was really great. And so when it came time for my senior year, I feel like soup kitchen is a very kind of, dare I say, stereotypical type of community service. When
necessary.
Very necessary. Absolutely. Yeah. But when you think of community service, it's like, oh yeah, I'll go to the soup kitchen or I'll do that. Again, necessary, but it's something that is common. Drives, I feel like food drives, again, necessary. Clothing drives, necessary. But something that I learned my senior year, the way that my high school did it, we did quarters. So we had first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. In case you didn't know what a quarter was, I decided to count it out. I would like to count it out for you. The fourth quarter senior year, aside from AP classes, you had the option to drop all of your classes and go out and do service. And they made it an academic exercise because you had to complete a daily reflection journal. You had a quote unquote sponsor who was a faculty member or staff member who you would have weekly meetings with, and you would talk about your experience. And strange enough, I spent the program at my school was called Senior Christian Service or Christian Senior Service, one of those. It was a Catholic school, so that's where Christian comes in. And I chose to work at a physical therapy office. which is interesting. It's like, why are you going to do service at the physical therapy office? I will admit,
You were a STEM major.
well, sure, but this was high school. This was high school.
Awkward.
But I'll have to admit, it was in a tennis club. I played tennis. I thought it'd be interesting. It's something that I never really experienced working in a physical therapy office before. My friend was also able to do it, so we did it together. And I don't know, there might have been a small part of me that's like, oh, this will be an easy way. So I'll end senior year doing service, but also an easy type of service. That's not the mindset you want to go into. Like we just talked about act versus intention.
Right.
Little did I know that going into this experience, I would learn so much about myself and about the community around me.
It can really surprise you.
Oh, absolutely. And the type of service I was doing, I was a senior in high school. I was not a PTA. I was not a physical therapist. So I wasn't doing a lot. I was prepping heating packs, ice packs, and then escorting people when the PTAs felt comfortable, escorting people to the upper part of the gym to do certain exercises, or walking them through the agenda that they had for this particular day of their appointment.
Right.
But the conversations I had is what really made it worthwhile for me, that human connection. And I learned that this is called a ministry of presence. I wasn't necessarily doing a lot, but I was being present with these patients or these clients. And when I talk about different types of service, this was something that's completely new to me. I felt like I always had to either be donating something for a drive, or serving people food, or fundraising for a certain cause. But I'd never really realized that just being present with people was a form of service or a ministry.
Yeah.
And this was something that was really interesting to me. Also, they helped, the people I interacted with helped me figure out where I was going to go to school. Fun enough, for college.
They helped you get on this podcast.
They helped me get on this podcast, and I have a story to tell. And, it was something that I really cherish and something that I am really grateful for. And I'm just really thankful. So I don't know. I guess that was a long way of saying that there are different types of service. And if you are taking part of this Be Kind 21 campaign, even if you're not, and you're just dedicating yourself to be a kind person every day, that's fantastic. And I encourage you to open your eyes and broaden your horizons a little bit more. Even if you think you know all about, kindness, or all about compassion, or all about different acts of service, there's always more to learn, and there's always different things to experience. And I didn't know that a ministry of presence was something that could be done. And I say ministry, because I don't know, I've talked about it before.
He's a hashtag religious man of faith.
I'm a hashtag man of faith. I'm religious. So I don't know. That's just another word of, what did you say?
I thought you just blessed yourself on the camera.
No. I was pushing my glasses into my face.
I was like, I am too, but
wow. I lost my train of thought. Anyways, just another way of saying, try different things. This is an opportunity when you hear this, try different things, different ways to be kind. Get out of your comfort zone. There's nothing worse than, it's funny because we talked about this a little bit in building a routine, but getting into routine and then not being able to get out of that routine because of, I don't know, if someone needs your help and you're just, I know I need to get to work, and there's someone on the side of the road that needs your help. Just take that extra moment. I promise you won't regret it. And yeah. So anyway, thank you, Nick, for bringing this, bringing us this campaign. And I'm going to yield some time to you now because I spoke.
No. I was just going to thank you for bringing up the human connection piece, because I really do think, and I'm not someone who's done like a ton of service. I'm not, because we have friends that are really give all to service. Some of them being
some of them committed a year to service.
Yeah. But like Mary and Megan are both just saints. But but there is really something that unlocks in you when you do service. So like my high school service, I worked at an elderly living complex. And at first I was like, oh, I have to do, like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it. I'm losing a weekend, whatever. And I think I was a junior or maybe a senior. I was a senior, but I actually really started to enjoy it. And you do just start to form a bond with the people you're working with. One of the, I think I said this before, the woman that I played Words with Friends with, did I say that on, or did I say that in my interview? I
I
think I
don't
said that in my
recall.
interview. She was, I believe, in her 90s, and her son and grandkids had just bought her an iPhone, and she didn't know how to use it, and I kind of helped her with the basics, and we got to playing Words with Friends. She's since passed away, but we played Words with Friends long after I left, after my hours were done. So it was really cool, and
That's
just
awesome.
yeah. So it really does unlock something. And moving away from the service aspect, what I really liked what you talked about, like broadening your what you think about, like reaching out to people. One of the things that I wish people did more of, and I really try and do it, and I think it's still considered a little bit like weird or like taboo because we're such, um, we like to fit this mold and fit in, but like I will respond to people's stories that I went to school with that I've never talked to. If something resonates with me, like
I agree. Yeah.
there's yeah, there's a person on the, I don't know, he played sports and at Loyola, and I know sometimes that people, and I've been guilty of, placing a stereotype on some of the men that play sports in college. I will admit it, but he was genuinely just such a kind person to me, and just like I've let him know that before. Like, hey, I just wanted to know, like, you're a really, really cool guy. Like, you're just, and I don't know, maybe people find that weird, but like if you post something, especially if it's about like an artist I like I will swipe up and say, and like if whether they like it or not, or if they talk about mental health, like we talked about how the swimming team at Loyola talked about mental health a lot, and I was like, wow, it's really cool to see you doing that because you have a platform and you're considered like a cool person, whatever that means. But we all know what it means. You have a status at school, and you're using that to talk about the importance of mental health, and I just think that's really cool. So reaching out, like responding to people's stories that you don't know, yeah, maybe they'll think it's weird, but like just I found, especially with the first kid I mentioned who's in my grade, was really appreciative and just really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate people like that.
Absolutely. It's kind of what I think we're trying to do with the podcast is
Yeah,
these people that you mentioned, and just it doesn't even have to be, if you have a platform, you have an opportunity to spread kindness
right.
or do the
Also
opposite.
have a platform.
Right.
Some obviously there are people, I don't want to make light of, there are marginalized communities and some people have a larger platform, and I think they should use
Right.
that platform. But everybody, to an extent, when I say everyone has a platform, we all have people that we're around, is
Right.
what I mean.
Absolutely.
We have this podcast. I feel an obligation to do that, and I'm going to stop talking about this now because I don't want to make this about us. I did want to share before we go, because I thought the coolest company participating in Be Kind 21, which I think the coolest company that did this, or the coolest partnership, was Indeed, because I think the workplace for a lot of people can be an anxiety or just a stress inducing place. But I just wanted to read some of the ideas for they had of 21 days of kindness at the workplace. And I think I just love how bold they were in taking a chance on a foundation with a name like Lady Gaga, because she's known for her eccentric art and also her kindness, but Indeed is supposed to be a very professional place, and it challenges, because personally I think Lady Gaga is a very professional person. I got to see that firsthand. But anyways, I'll just read some of my favorites. So check in with a coworker you haven't talked to in a while. Learn something new about a coworker's role. I think that's awesome, because the if somebody's out for a day, that could, I mean, obviously in certain situations you can't do a person's job, but if you can help in any way, I think that shows a huge appreciation for your coworkers. Obviously this one should be in every workplace. Encourage a culture where everyone feels they can be a part of the important conversations in your office. Um, and also, this is one that is a relevant conversation today, as relevant as it should be, or it should be more relevant, obviously. But add your pronouns to your digital profiles and email signature, because the way we're thinking, the world is starting to think about gender. And there have been people that have thought about it this way for a long, long time, but the world is starting to view gender a different way. And there are people who don't identify with the binary gender and just putting that in
the system that's been the norm for a bit.
Exactly. So like I use he, him, his, but putting that in my profile or in social media profiles and my work email, that can be affirming to people who might not be. Are you pointing to your pronouns?
Yes.
Okay, I was like, are you telling me I'm going over time?
No, I have my
Justin has his in his LinkedIn, but I think that's a really kind act, and that's one of the ones that Born This Way advertised that they were doing.
Right. And that's great. I think a lot of companies are coming in on this too, and I think it's just a wonderful opportunity for us to kind of take stock in who are we as people. Are we the people that we want to be? Are we, as Nick mentioned in a previous episode, if we were a character, who would the character, if we were writing ourselves as a character, where we'd want to see our character go? And I think this is a great opportunity, Be Kind 21, to do that. So I want to thank you again for bringing it up. Before we close today, as we're recording this, one of the big headlines that have been all over social media and all of the news sources are the Texas SB 8 bill, or legislative piece of legislation that has passed. We're obviously not going to talk about it at the end of this episode, but we just wanted to raise awareness and assure our listeners that we are aware of what's going on. And we have a conversation planned where we will talk a little bit about it in next week's episode. We're excited for our guest for next week. But we just wanted to at least let everybody know in this week's episode that we are aware of what's going on. We're following it, and we will be sharing our point of view, as we always do. And as we promised, we said we would talk about sometimes controversial topics and current events, and I think this falls in both categories.
And human rights topics. We also I just want to give some clarification. So the reason we didn't talk about it in this episode, we were going to, and then we just thought that it would be a more appropriate. First of all, both Justin and I identify as men, and
we wanted to hear multiple perspectives. And we planned our guest for next week to be someone who identifies as a woman and has a lot to say about social justice issues in general, as well as she might have some things to say about what's going on in Texas. But we felt like it more appropriate for this conversation to be had in next week's episode.
Yes.
Right. So anyway, what a light note to end this one on.
Well, I think it's important. So I think
absolutely.
I think you did a good job.
Absolutely.
Sharing that.
And with that, my name is Justin.
I'm Nick.
And you can reach us. What did you say?
I was going to say it's 1:25 in the morning.
It's 1:25 in the morning. And you can reach us on Instagram and Facebook at Point of DOO Podcast. That's Point of Do Podcast, all one word. Or by sending us a voice message on our website, anchor.fm/pointofdo. If you enjoy our show, give us a rating or review in the Apple Podcast store, or share us with a friend or family member. We'd really appreciate it and are truly grateful for your support. As always, we hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you for listening, and until next time, H. Myself in the past. Time to say goodbye.